This is the Royal Report.
Good evening and welcome to the Royal Report. I'm Caroline de Russo, and this week is eventful as always with the Windsors. Here's what's coming up on the program tonight. Meghan Markle is reportedly about to sign a massive multi-million-dollar deal. We'll give you the details. Popular Netflix series The Crown has come under fire for pushing the boundaries too far. Find out what the public are furious about. And money is apparently coming between Harry and Meghan. We'll be joined by Esther Krakow to fill you in on the latest. First it was South Park and now it's Family Guy. It seems the life and lifestyle of the Sussexes is prime fodder for satire. In their continuous drive for publicity, or the World Privacy Tour as it has become known, they've instead wound up in the firing line. Perhaps it was a risk and reward strategy that didn't quite hit flush, or maybe it's just a total lack of self-awareness. In any event, it has provided hours of amusement for the rest of us. You know, we've all seen that South Park clip before, but here it is again for good measure.
We want privacy! We want privacy!
All right, thanks for having us on the show.
It's so awesome to be here. It's great.
So let me start with you, Sam. You've lived a life with the royal family, you've had everything handed to you, but you say your life has been hard, and now you've written all about it in your new book, Where?
Mockery of elite hypocrisy never gets old. Those who think they know what's best for the rest of us without ever really having a clue deserve much disdain. And I'll show you the Family Guy episode later in the show. It's excellent and it doesn't miss. But here is the point. The royal family prides itself on service to the community carried out in an elegant and subtle way. This week, King Charles hosted members of a Palestinian charity at Buckingham Palace in the wake of the Israel-Gaza conflict. It is community engagement which requires a balanced and diplomatic touch. However, the brashness of the Sussexes and the brandishing of titles continues to provide a very stark contrast. Joining us now is News Corp columnist Angela Mollard and Michelle Stevenson from Nova Radio. Ladies, welcome to the show. Angela, we spoke about the final series of The Crown a couple of weeks ago, but a recent trailer's really caused quite a stir, depicting the late Princess Diana as a ghost talking to the Queen. Have a look.
We've finally succeeded in turning this house upside down. It's nothing less than revolution.
That's never my intention.
Angela, the creator has felt the need to speak out about it. The criticism must have been something to warrant that happening.
That's right. Some of the criticism have said that it's cruel, that it's farcical and that it's a sick joke. That was a historian in the Daily Mail. Look, I think, you used the word the ghost. Peter Morgan, the creator of the series The Crown, and this is, of course, the 6th series, he's saying that actually it's just Diana being part of the narrative. It shows how vividly she affected the royal family even after her death. Morgan has had to defend the series right from the very beginning. It's been claims of sensationalism and that sort of thing. But really, the most sensational things that have ever come out of about the royal family have actually come from their own mouths, from Diana, her true story, and from Harry, obviously the publication of Spare. People are engaged with it. I can't wait to see it. I don't think it's a problem.
Michelle, what are your thoughts? I mean, it's obviously not a documentary or anything, but has it pushed it too far?
Look, I think at some point, they're just going to, it's fictitious, and we always have to keep that in mind. And I think people are just going to be swept up in the whole idea of it. It's not a biography, and we know it's not a biography. They're just going to have a bit of fun with it. But it's kind of nice that they're including Diana in this kind of narrative, and I understand why he has gone this path and why he's gone this route, because she's always been part of the forefront of people's minds, and she will always be the people's princess. So I think kind of like putting her in the narrative and controlling it in that regards, I kind of understand. I think it's kind of sweet.
Yeah, good observation, Michelle. But I'll stick with you, Michelle. We have some really quirky stories actually this week on the show, but this one is great. I love this. Apparently the Queen's Rangy is for sale. No doubt quite the collector's item.
Yes, look, it's a 2004 Range Rover, and I think it was last sold only 3 months ago. So the seller is trying to get rid of it again. So I don't know if you're getting a bit of a lemon. It's got 175,000 kilometres on it, but it last sold for 60,000 Australian dollars. I don't know what it would sell for now, but like, look, who wouldn't want a piece of this iconic part of history? Because we can just imagine the Queen driving around in it. She always had like that headscarf on. She'd drive around Windsor Castle in this. But what's really interesting is, you know, the royal family have long held a relationship with Range Rover, but it looks like the King is sampling elsewhere, and knowing the King, it could even be an electric vehicle on the horizon. So they might be moving away from the Range Rovers and the Land Rovers. Watch this space.
You can't help but come on this show and be controversial, Michelle. Anyway, on to the Sussexes, and speaking of controversial. So Meghan Markle, she tried this.
I don't know how they could expect that after all of this time, we would still just be silent.
And it backfired, so then she tried this.
Like, I curtsied as though I was like... Pleasure to meet you, Your Majesty.
And then that backfired, so she tried this podcast.
People should expect the real me in this, and probably the me that they've never gotten to know, certainly not in the past few years, where everything is through the lens of the media, as opposed to, hey, it's me.
And her contract didn't get renewed. So naturally, she's turned her sights to yet another project. Apparently, she's on the cusp of signing a multi-million-dollar deal. Angela, what are the details?
Well, look, there's a lot of speculation that she's going to sign a deal with Audible for another podcast series. Now, I can't see this happening. She spent the entire series of the archetypes with Spotify interviewing herself. I mean, she did have guests, but all we heard about was Meghan talking about Meghan. So I don't think there's anything left for her to say. There's also some speculation that she's been sort of smooching up to Kevin Costner, who's got a sort of 4-part Western-style opus coming out, and that she'd like an acting role in it. But I'm sorry, you don't go from Suits to a high-profile role like that. He could possibly want her on board because, of course, you know, she's going to attract attention, but he's an A-lister in his own right. I'm not seeing it. No, Meghan's job, the one she would have been really, really good at, was duchessing. She would have been a great duchess if she'd stuck with it, if she'd used that platform to network, to have the gravitas that comes with that role. Sadly, she dipped out before she really could have run away with it.
And Michelle, look, as much as the Sussexes cop criticism, it actually would be great to see Meghan have something to throw herself into. But this feels like a little bit of a kite flying exercise to me.
Yeah, totally. I mean, she's just signed on with a new global management company, so I'm sure they're out there spruiking, trying to get whatever they can from her. But we do have to say as well, Amazon have flat out denied that this is happening, but it doesn't mean that it's not happening. They're just saying that it isn't happening. But look, I just want her to get back to what she does best, Suits, show a little little skin and like flirt with some hot men. I didn't mind that Duchess. I thought that Duchess was quite good.
Yeah, very different sort of Duchess, yeah, but point taken. And look, British celebrity Steve Coogan, best known for his role as Alan Partridge, has recently been slammed by royal enthusiasts on a podcast. Take a listen.
I think you can be anti-monarchist, but also admit they've done some things right.
Yes,
the orange juice is spot on.
I suppose it's because most of the people who are into it all, those flag-waving plastic boater people, are just, I think, are kind of idiots because they support a power structure that keeps a foot on the throat of working class people.
Angela, surely labelling people who merely respect the monarchy as flag-waving idiots, probably going a little too far. How was that received in the UK?
Oh, look, there's 1,300 comments on the Telegraph story about it, and still counting. I mean, you really know how to alienate an audience when you call them flag-waving idiots. Look, let's just look at the figures. There were 28 million people in Britain watched the funeral of the Queen. There were 20 million watched the coronation. 400 million worldwide were reportedly said to have watched King Charles's coronation. So, look, they may be a declining institution, but the interest in them is not going away anytime soon. So I think Coogan's deeply out of step.
Michelle, I think that's probably right, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I would probably agree with that. But, like, I do think there are some people who would probably agree with him. And as Angela said, look, they are a declining institution. I don't know whether they're going to kind of win back the favour because the Queen was very, very popular. So it's hard to see how we go moving forward and to whether they're going to gain that popularity again. But it's kind of very interesting to me about how that you've got these people who are so staunchly monarchist in England, and then you've got people who are so anti-monarchist, and they never really can find any common ground. But it's interesting to see how it's going to go, the monarchy moving forward.
Angela, the royal family reconciliation rumours, will they continue? What's new this week and who isn't budging?
Oh, look, there's stories out saying that Kate, who was, of course, the peacemaker early on, we saw her, trying to bring Harry and William back together. The fact is that her relationship with Prince Harry is reportedly so broken down that there's no chance that there'll be a reconciliation. Look, why would she? What has she got to gain from repairing that relationship? Harry criticised her. He criticised her husband. He even criticised the way that they were raising their children and that their children would go through the pain of being a spare as well. There is no love lost there. And my view is that William and Harry will not be brought close together again unless King Charles was to fall ill, or alternately that Meghan and Harry were to separate and then Harry would be on his own. So, look, no hopes of a reconciliation in the short term at least.
There's a lot of confident calls on the panel tonight. I'm enjoying this. Michelle, how does this sort of thing play on FM radio?
Look, I think everyone enjoys the kind of the unfurling of the monarchy, and they like the stories and they like to hear what's going on behind closed doors. But let me tell you, if they're not going to get together for Christmas, I mean, what family doesn't have their arguments and disagreements about who's going where over Christmas? But I want to see them get together and have some family therapy, because I think these people are ripe for family therapy, and let's get Dr. Phil in on that. Let's televise it. I think we really need to get to the root of what the real problem is here.
And it's something that we all know what's best, no doubt. Now, Angela, although Harry may not be on the greatest terms with his own family, it's reported this week that he's very close to his immediate family.
Well, his immediate family being, Meghan, his two children, and Doria. Yes, that's right. This report is saying that he has a lovely relationship with his mother-in-law. Well, there's no one else to have a relationship with, because Meghan's cut out the rest of her family, and, of course, Harry's cut out his. Look, I think it'll start to play really keenly on his mind in the coming years. Archie, his son, is now 4. Lilibet is 2. These kids are getting to the age where actually being around your cousins is an important part of your life. Now, Harry grew up with Zara and Peter Phillips, with other kids in the royal family. He's also seen George, Louis and Charlotte enjoy their relationships and friendships with other young royal children. I mean, we saw those beautiful photos when the Queen was still alive of them all together sitting on the couch with her. Harry will start to feel the impact of his and Meghan's decision as his children get older, as they start to ask questions, as they look around the Christmas, dining table and realise there's only 4 people there, compared to how Harry grew up, whereas, of course, there's this enormous table and lots of fun. I think that, he is clinging to his relationship with Doria, but, you need a broader family than that. Or you need good friends, and they're ditching him as well.
And I think when you're probably used to having a really big family and lots of people around all the time, it must feel like a very different set of circumstances. Anyway, ladies, thank you so much. Angela Mollard, Michelle Stevenson, thank you for joining us. Now, up after the break, the Sussexes are yet again the subject of a brutal satirical cartoon. But why are they such an easy target? Esther Kraku joins us to discuss. Welcome back to the show. Joining us now is writer and broadcaster Esther Kraku. Esther, we had a great laugh earlier this year when South Park took the mickey out of the Sussexes. Well, another popular cartoon has taken aim at the couple as well. Look, we'll show you that in a second, but before we get to the clip, why do you think satire works so well when it comes to the Sussexes?
I think it's because their life has been so ridiculous. Obviously, being members of the royal family, anything to do with them is obviously big news, but it's the kind of sensationalist way that they left the royal family and have been crying for privacy and have done everything against actually getting their privacy, signing multi-million dollar deals with the likes of Netflix and Spotify. And, you know, it's the embodiment of being famous for nothing. They're kind of like the Kardashians of the royal family, and it's entertaining to watch. And there's so much material for satire when it comes to these two.
Well, here's the clip from Family Guy.
That's fine, I'll go it alone, just like Meghan Markle and Prince Harry.
Sir, your millions from Netflix for no one knows what.
Put it with the rest of them.
Babe, time to do our daily $250,000 sponsored Instagram post for Del Taco.
I shouldn't have left the made-up nonsense.
Esther, they didn't miss, did they?
They definitely didn't. You know, Family Guy is one of my favourite shows. I was a bit sad when Seth MacFarlane stopped writing for them a few years ago, but I think, you know, this is a very easy win to sort of make fun of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And they're right. You know, they're famous for doing God knows what. I mean, their podcast with Spotify was cancelled, understandably so, apparently because of differing expectations. But I think it just drove home the fact that really they have very little to offer. So Prince Harry, as a member of the royal family, when he was, you know, an active working member, was quite an interesting character. You know, he had all these stories. The royal family actually humanized him. He was the fun-loving, you know, ginger guy that everyone loved to be around. And since he's been married, he's been a complete bore, a complete misery, snooze fest even. And then Meghan Markle is just, you know, a B-list actress known for one role. She's not exactly a biochemist or a doctor or anything really of substance. She's just someone that plays pretend for a living. And somehow that's made the couple think that they have so much to offer. And I think they've really been humbled by the reality, and so has Netflix, because I don't suspect they've got their money's worth for that $100 million deal that they signed with the couple.
Now, Charles has always taken an interest in international affairs. He met with a Palestinian charity and its leaders this week. It's a difficult dispute. Has he struck the right tone?
It seems that he has. You know, after the attacks on October 7th, that saw over 1,400 Israelis butchered by Hamas terrorists, you know, the king didn't waste any time coming out to condemn the attacks and obviously showing solidarity with Israel and its victims. And so did Prince William. And it was actually quite an interesting contrast with the BBC that even refused to call the Hamas terrorists, even though they are a designated terrorist group here in the UK and have been so for a few years. But he's also showing concerns for the humanitarian crisis in Palestine at the moment. He met with the chief executive of UNICEF, representatives from the British Red Cross and other humanitarian groups. And, you know, as the world is watching this crisis unfold, he obviously understands that it's not an easy solution. There's no easy solution to this situation, and there are really going to be no winners on either side. And I think he struck the nuance of the crisis going on, and that's something that we appreciate. I often say that you can't get a better diplomat or representative than members of the royal family, because that is literally their job. They are supposed to echo public sentiment, and you know, King Charles has always been very good at that. You know, Prince William as well, he is very passionate about humanitarian issues. I mean, one of the causes that he's championing is to try and eradicate homelessness here in Britain. So clearly humanitarian issues are also close to his heart. But, you know, with regards to this crisis, I think King Charles struck the perfect note, actually.
Now, Halloween is a big thing for the Americans, and it's grown in popularity over the years in the rest of the Anglosphere. But the royal family has some historical quirks, which has meant some of the royals have had to celebrate the holiday somewhat more subtly. Here is Meghan on the Ellen DeGeneres show with her story about celebrating Halloween with Prince Harry.
So you went with Harry to a Halloween party and they had no idea it was the two of you?
No.
It was a post-apocalypse theme, so we had all of this very bizarre costuming on, and we were able to just sort of have one final fun night out.
So, Esther, what's the royal rule and how do they get around it?
So the royal rule around the royals and how they dress in public in general goes back to Queen Victoria, where she effectively stipulated that all members of the royal family have to conduct themselves with decorum and dignity in public, which means that costumes are completely out of the question. Now, the late Queen Elizabeth actually dressed up as Cinderella at some point before she actually ascended the throne. So it's not like they cannot do it at all, but it was obviously behind closed doors. In public, they have to, be royal and act like they're on the job, because they always are. But the royal family has an unspoken rule that active members of the royal family can't dress up in any costume in public. Now, obviously, we all remember Prince Harry and his Nazi costume at a Halloween party almost 20 years ago now. But it's something that the royals have stuck true to. Obviously, Prince Harry and Meghan and Princess Eugenie and I believe Beatrice went to a Halloween party a few years ago, but that was very low-key. It wasn't sort of in any capacity as a working royal, but it has been a rule that they have stuck to for many years. I can't imagine actually seeing King Charles in costume now. So I think it's only certain members of the royal family that would be interested in doing that. But it's definitely an American import. I've been told not to give children raisins for Halloween lest they bomb my house.
Now, Esther, it will surprise precisely no one that couples have differing views on money. Why are the Sussexes in the news about this precise issue?
So apparently the Sussexes have different approaches to what to do with their money. So Prince Harry, after releasing the bombshell sort of autobiography earlier this year, Spare, now he wants to focus more on family and charity work, and he wants to funnel a lot of the couple's money towards that. I think we both know that they have made a lot of money given their shenanigans over the last 2 years. But apparently Meghan wants to actually focus on building up her brand. So there have been rumours that she could actually post or do sponsored posts on Instagram, which is something that influencers do. I wouldn't know because I'm not one of them. But apparently she could make up to $1 million a post by just sponsoring any sort of brand that's willing to have her as a spokesperson. So it's going to be quite an interesting dynamic to navigate. Obviously, Prince Harry's has stated that his focus is more on charity work and public service and focusing on his family. But obviously their brands are diverging as Meghan wants to kind of rebuild her own brand as well and sort of image in the public life. So it'll be quite an interesting approach. I suspect they spend a good amount of their money on security. So whatever spare change that they have, they should probably use wisely, because I don't think the royal family are very interested in bringing them back into the fold.
Esther Kraku, as always, thank you so much for joining us. Now, just before we go, we know Charles is quite the environmentalist and green thumb. And look, if singing to plants works, I'm all for it. This week, the King's horticulturalist says we can all have our own horticulture style. It's not just about good taste and whatever that means in the world of horticulture. So to our viewers, live your best horticulture life. And that there comes right from the top. And that's the show for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Up next is Newsnight. Good night, and we'll see you next week.